Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be doing a brief overview of every 2026 Bengals Ring of Honor candidate by at BIB4Bengals, which is the Jungle Report. So, the Bengals Ring of Honor was introduced in 2021, which was the same season where the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl against the LA Rams at SoFi Stadium. But yeah, this has been going on for 5 years now, and it's basically where I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I think there's a bunch of inductees, and like one or two of them will be inducted into the Bengals Ring of Honor, which is kind of like the Hall of Fame, but it's like the Hall of Fame, but just for the Bengals. And we're gonna be doing, just a brief overview of the 12 candidates for the 2026 Ring of Honor. Starting off, we have defensive tackle Geno Atkins, who played with the Bengals from 2010 to 2020. By the way, these, in the parentheses where it says 2010 or whatever years they played, this is just for when they played on the Bengals. So, like, it may not be like their entire career, but just them when they played with the Bengals. And you'll understand that later with like players we see later that didn't just play for the Bengals, but mainly played for the Bengals. Anyways, Geno Atkins was one of the best defensive tackles in NFL history. 6'1", 300 pounds. He had incredible speed and strength. He was born in 1988 in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which I have been to. It's a very nice place. He went to college at Georgia, and he was drafted by the Bengals in 2010. So Geno Atkins had very amazing seasons. He was a very well-rounded player. He didn't just have one amazing season. He had many great seasons, but one of his best seasons was in 2012 when he had 12 and a half sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 54 tackles. 17 tackle for losses, and 21 QB hits, which is it's an incredible performance. In his entire career, he had 77 and a half sacks, which led all defensive linemen in sacks in the 2010s decade. He also had a total of 384 combination tackles, so both solo and assisted tackles. He had 228 solo tackles, and he had 161 games played. Geno Atkins is an 8-time Pro Bowler, which is the most by any Bengals defender, and a 2-time All-Pro. And he has the third most sacks in club history, which I believe number one is Eddie Edwards, defensive end for the Bengals, who played in the 80s. And I believe he is already in the Bengals Ring of Honor. Next up, we have kicker Jim Breach. I feel like, it's kind of sad to say this, but the average NFL fan may not know who Jim Breach is, but he's the all-time Bengals scorer, only Bengals player with over 1,000 points, and he was born in 1956 in Sacramento, California, and he went to college in California. And if the people who do know who Jim Breach is, Bengals legend, he was actually drafted by the Detroit Lions in '78. But he didn't even play a snap for them before being traded to the Oakland Raiders, which many people also didn't know. He played one season for the Raiders before being traded to the Cincinnati Bengals and having a 12-year career with Cincinnati. Jim Breach had a franchise record of 1,246 points, having 243 field goals and 517 extra points. He is the second all-time player with consecutive games played scoring points, which is 186 games, which is absolutely incredible. And Jim Breach was the third highest scoring player in 1981 and was the fifth highest scoring player in the 1980s. In 1988, the same year the Bengals made it to the Super Bowl against the 49ers, he scored a career high of 56 out of 59 extra points and a career high of field goals made in 1987, which was 24 out of 30 field goals. I actually have a football card of Jim Breach, an original football card of Jim Breach, when he played, and it's a very cool card. It on the card it says like he's the all-time scorer. It's just very cool to see the history. Number 3, we have running back slash halfback James Brooks. Played from 1984 to 1991 with the Bengals. He was born in 1958 in Lansing, Michigan. He went to college at Auburn University and was drafted by the San Diego Chargers in 1981. He had 3 1,000 rushing yard seasons, all of 3 which were the Cincinnati Bengals, and in 1988, one of the most historic seasons from the Bengals, James Brooks had a career high of 8 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving touchdowns. You know, listening to those stats probably makes you think of Christian McCaffrey because they had a very similar playing style of both being running backs but also being a big receiver. And in 1986, he had 1,087 rushing yards and 686 receiving yards. Wasn't as good as Christian McCaffrey because Christian McCaffrey, I think this past season he had 1,000 yards both rushing and receiving, which is insane. But you can see that they had very similar playing roles. In 1989, James Brooks had a career high of 1,239 rushing yards, which is very good. And James Brooks was the second all-time leading rusher on the Bengals with 6,447 yards, and was the second most and had the second most catches by a Bengals running back in franchise history, 297. He was tied with Corey Dillon for most Pro Bowls made by a Bengals running back, which is 4. And Corey Dillon, also one of the best Bengals running backs, nicknamed Clock Killin'. He played for the Bengals and Patriots and won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. Next up, we have wide receiver Chris Collinsworth. Many people probably know him because he is one of the current NFL analysts and commentators alongside with Mike Tirico. Last season they commentated for Sunday Night Football, and I believe Chris Collinsworth also commentated Thanksgiving Night Football when the Bengals played the Ravens and they beat them. I'm not 100% sure, but I want to say he commentated one of the special event games. It was either Thanksgiving or like Christmas, but I think it was Thanksgiving. Chris Collinsworth was born in 1959 in Dayton, Ohio, which is very funny because he played in Cincinnati. He would end up playing in Cincinnati, which is very close to Dayton. And he went to college at Florida and played for the Florida Gators. He was drafted by the Bengals in the second round in 1981, and I think he was like the 54th overall pick, or like he's definitely in the 50s overall pick. I'm actually going to search that up right now. Chris Collinsworth, drafted by Bengals. Oh, 37th overall pick. Okay, I was off by a lot there. Never mind. So he was the 37th overall pick, and Chris Collinsworth was a 3-time Pro Bowler. And in the 8-year period he played, the only players that caught more yards than him were Hall of Famers James Lofton, Steve Largent, and Art Monk. Huge names. Chris Collinsworth had an incredible rookie season. Very similar to Jamar Chase. Both of them wide receivers for the Bengals, and both of them had very historic rookie seasons, with Jamar Chase catching for I think it was 1,455 yards, I'm pretty sure. But Chris Collinsworth in his rookie season had 1,009 receiving yards for eight touchdowns, which was the first time a Bengals player caught for over 1,000 yards, which is incredible by a rookie. And Chris Collinsworth had 4 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and the most would be in 1983 with 1,130 yards. And the most touchdowns he had was in 1986 with 10 touchdowns. Chris Collinsworth made it to 2 Super Bowls, one in 1981 and one in 1988, both against the 49ers. And like I said, he's now a football analyst and commentator, mainly alongside Mike Tirico. Next up, we have defensive end Carlos Dunlap. Played with the Bengals from 2010 to 2020. And Yeah, he was Carlos Dunlap was an incredible player, and yeah. So he was born in 1989 in North Charleston, South Carolina. Um, Shout out to at FTH4 Panthers. He has a football podcast for the Carolina Panthers, and you'll probably hear me mention him every time I mention Carolina because you know Panthers play for Carolina, and yeah. So he played for the Florida Gators in college, and before being drafted by the Bengals in the sorry. He was and he played for college with the Florida Gators, and he was drafted by the Bengals in the second round in 2010. Carlos was a two-time Pro Bowler and one-time Super Bowl champion with the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. I believe he also played. Oof, I'm blanking out, but I believe he also played one season for the Seahawks, but I'm not 100% sure. He played for the Bengals for most of his career, and then I think he played for the Seahawks, and then lastly with the Chiefs in 2022. But Carlos Dunlap broke the Bengals' rookie season sack record, having 9.5 sacks in his first season, which is incredible. And in 2015, that was one of his best seasons ever, getting a club record 13.5 sacks before it was broken later on by Trey Hendrickson, when Trey Hendrickson had two back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons. An outstanding performance by Trey Hendrickson. Um, that same 2015 season by Carlos Dunlap, he had two forced fumbles, 55 combination tackles, and 34 QB hits, which is outstanding. In Carlos's whole career with the Bengals, he had 82.5 sacks, which is the second most sacks by a Bengals defender. It is the most sacks by a Bengals player in the Paycor Stadium era, and was the singular sack away from Eddie Edwards' franchise record sacks. Carlos was one of the most dominant defensive ends, and in his whole career, he had a total of 100 sacks, 578 combination tackles, 384 solo tackles, and 22 forced fumbles. Outstanding. Next up, we have safety David Fulcher, who played from the Bengals from 1986 to 1992. And David Fulcher was a very big safety, specifically strong safety. 6'3", 236 pounds. He was known for tackling like a linebacker because of how big he was. But David Fulcher was one of the best Bengals safeties in franchise history, alongside Jesse Bates III and other players. And he had a total of 31 interceptions. And his best season in 1989, he had 8 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. And 8 interceptions is amazing for a safety. I believe Hall of Famer Bengals cornerback Ken Riley, one of the best cornerbacks of all time. I believe in Ken Riley's best season, he either had 8 or 9 interceptions. So, very similar performance, different positions, but both had an amazing amount of interceptions. David Fulcher was a 3-time Pro Bowler and had the most interceptions by any Bengals safety. In his whole career stretch, he had the third most interceptions, just behind Ronnie Lott and Joey Browner, two incredible players in the NFL. Yeah. Moving on to wide receiver A.J. Green, who played for the Bengals from 2011 to 2020 before playing with the Cardinals for a year or two and eventually retiring. A.J. Green was born in 1988 in Summersville, South Carolina. Another Bengals player who grew up in South Carolina. One in Somerville, one in North Charleston. A.J. Green went to Georgia College and was drafted 4th overall in the 2011 draft by the Cincinnati Bengals. Very similarly to Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was drafted 5th overall by the Bengals. Also wide receiver, so very similar there in that aspect. A.J. Green is a 7-time Pro Bowler and made it to the playoffs on 5 separate occasions. A.J. Green had 6 1,000-yard seasons and a highest of 1,426 yards in 2013. AJ Green had 11 touchdowns in both 2012 and 2013. And even though AJ Green missed almost 2 seasons due to injuries, he had almost 10,000 receiving yards. He had 9,430 yards and 65 touchdowns as a Bengal, and was second only behind Chad Johnson, better known as Chad Ochocinco, another legendary Bengals player known for his cockiness, but definitely a very talented player as well. AJ Green's first game as a Bengal played alongside wide receiver Jerome Simpson, another huge Bengals player. As you can see, Bengals very known for their stacked wide receiver cores, and he also played alongside Andy Dalton. And in AJ Green's first game, he scored a touchdown from Andy Dalton to make a comeback and win the game. And in AJ Green's whole career, he had 727 receptions, 10,514 yards, and 70 touchdowns, which is crazy. Next up, we have cornerback Leon Hill, who played from the Bengals in 2007 to 2015. Leon Hill was born in 1984 in Vista, California, and he went to college at Michigan for the Michigan Wolves, I believe. I do not know a lot about college football, but I'm pretty sure it's the Michigan Wolves. And he was later drafted by the Bengals 18th overall. As a cornerback, in Leon's first season, he had 5 interceptions, 12 passes defended, a forced fumble, and 70 combination tackles, which is an incredible rookie performance. I mean, 5 interceptions and 12 passes defended. That's like a dream rookie season for a cornerback. In 2008, he had 24 passes defended and 75 combination tackles, along with 3 interceptions. And I mean, he had 2. I'll get into this very soon, but he had 2 back-to-back seasons with 24 passes defended, which is, I mean, I'm pretty sure he was the leader for that in those 2 seasons, which is that's just incredible. To put that in perspective, cornerback DJ Turner for the Bengals, currently drafted in 2023. I think he was drafted in the second round. DJ Turner had the second most passes defended this last season, which was 18, and Mike Jackson led the league with 19 passes defended. So Leon Hill had 2 back-to-back seasons with 6 more passes defended than DJ Turner and 5 more passes defended than Mike Jackson. All 3 of them great cornerbacks. Yeah. So in Leon Hill's best season, the year after 2008, he had a career-high 6 interceptions, 24 passes defended, and 71 combination tackles. Just an outstanding performance by Leon Hill from 2007 and 2008 and 2009. I've been saying Hill this whole time, haven't I? I am so sorry. It's Leon Hall. I deeply apologize for that. Wow. Very, very big slip up by me. Have I been? I honestly haven't been keeping track. If I've been saying Hill, I really apologize. I meant to say Hall this whole time. But Leon Hall played 121 games with the Bengals, which is most. Oh, typo there. Apologize for that. I can edit that real quick. This is the most games played by a Bengals cornerback that decade and 3rd all-time, despite missing 23 games due to a torn Achilles. From 2012 to 2012, Hall defended 90 passes, which was the 3rd best in the league. And in the 2012 playoffs, Hall was the only person to score a touchdown, having a 17-yard pick six to win the game against the Steelers 13-10. And in Leon's whole career, he had 27 interceptions, 118 passes defended, and 544 combination tackles. Next up, we have guard Max Montoya. Played for the Bengals from 1979 to 1989. Anthony Munoz and Max Montoya were just an outstanding duo on the offensive line. It was just incredible. Max Montoya was born in 1956 in Montebello, California. He went to college at UCLA and was drafted by the Bengals in round 7. So this guy was not meant, he had the very low expectations, not meant to be a great player. 7th round pick, you never expect a 7th round pick to become one of the best guards in NFL history, but he was. He was one of the best Bengals guards in franchise history and was a 3-time Pro Bowler and one of the best guards in the NFL during the 2 Super Bowl runs in the 80s. He helped the Bengals significantly to get the second-ranked offense that went to Super Bowl 16 against the 49ers in 1981. And he helped the Bengals running game, which took up the ball for 39 minutes in the 1988 AFC title game win against Buffalo. Alongside with Hall of Famer Anthony Munoz, Max Montoya is the only man to protect both NFL MVPs Ken Anderson and Boomer Esiason. While Max Montoya played for the Bengals, he helped the offense finish top 5 in offense 8 separate times, which is incredible. Next up, we have wide receiver / tight end Bob Trumpy, who played from 1968, the Bengals' inaugural season, to 1977. I don't think a lot of people know who Bob Trumpy is, but if you don't, he was one of the best Bengals receivers in franchise history and was an outstanding player. He was born in 1945 in Springfield, Illinois, and he went to college at Illinois and Utah. He was drafted by the Bengals in the 12th round. So back in the day, drafts were a little different, and or at least this is when they played in the AFL for like 2 seasons. So I'm not 100% sure if that's how that worked in the NFL, but in the AFL or NFL common draft, I'm not 100% sure about this topic. There was many more rounds than just 7. Bob Trumpy was a very big player, standing at 6'6", 228 pounds. And in 1969, when they were part of the AFL, Bob Trumpy caught 835 yards, 9 touchdowns, and a long of 80 yards. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a 1-time All-Pro. And in 1969, he averaged 22.6 yards per catch, which is the second longest for any NFL tight end in a season, and the second longest for any receiver in franchise history. From 1968 to 1973, he caught 216 passes for an average of 15.8 yards per catch, which was the second best, another typo there, spelled best twice. Second best among NFL tight ends for those 6 seasons. Bob Trumpy was a key part of Paul Brown and Bill Walsh's offense that later turned into the modern passing game. Pretty sure. I want to say, I think Greg Cook, famous Bengals quarterback, had an outstanding game against the Houston Oilers in 1969, I believe. The game was tied. It was a tie game, 31-31, and then in that game, Greg Cook threw a 75-yard touchdown to Bob Trumpy, and a 75-yard touchdown to Eric Crabtree. Little fun fact there. Outstanding game. And those are the things Bob Trumpy could do. Next up, we have left tackle Andrew Whitworth. Played from the Bengals from 2006 to 2016. You guys probably know who Andrew Whitworth is. He is a commentator for football, more specifically Thursday Night Football, with oh my gosh, he commentates with 3 other people. One of them being Richard Sherman, Seattle and 49ers famous cornerback. But Andrew Whitworth was born in 1981 in Monroe, Louisiana, and he went to college at LSU, very famous college that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase also went to. And he was drafted by the Bengals in the 2nd round, 55th overall. Andrew Whitworth was a very big person, standing at 6'7", 330 pounds, and he had girth in geometry to dominate at his position. He had the lowest pressure rate among NFL tackles during the 2010s decade, and he protected Bengals cornerback Andy Dalton, who also played for the Carolina Panthers and other teams like the Saints and more teams, 613 times, only allowed 10 pressures and 0 sacks. He captained 6 Bengals playoff teams while being a 3-time Pro Bowler. And with 168 games played as a Bengal, he played the most Bengals games by an offensive player in the Paycor Stadium era. And Whitworth has blocked 4 different 1,000-yard Bengals rushers, including Rudy Johnson, Cedric Benson, Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, and Jeremy Hill. And another fun fact, Andrew Whitworth won the Super Bowl with the LA Rams in 2021 against the Bengals at SoFi Stadium. Very, very close game, very sad ending. But yeah, Andrew Whitworth did win the Super Bowl with the Rams that season and would very soon retire. I believe this is our 12th and last player of the video, linebacker Reggie Williams, not the basketball player, the linebacker, football player Reggie Williams, who played with the Bengals from 1976 to 1989. 13-year career, very, very solid. Reggie Williams was born in 1954 in Flint, Michigan, and he went to college at Dartmouth and was drafted by the Bengals in the 3rd round, 82nd overall. Reggie Williams was the best tackler and linebacker in Bengals history, no doubt about it. He has had the most games played, 206, with a 13-year-long career, most sacks by a Bengals linebacker, 62.5, and the most interceptions by a Bengals linebacker, 16. Williams led the Bengals to Super Bowl 16 against the 49ers, like I've said before, in 1981, and he led the team with 11 sacks and 4 interceptions as a linebacker. And 7 years later, during the 1988 Super Bowl, once again against the 49ers, Reggie Williams led the team in tackles, which 10, and he added on with a sack. With 63.5 sacks and 788 tackles, him and Hall of Famer Ricky Jackson are the only linebackers in the 1980s decade with 50 sacks and 700 tackles, which is an incredible achievement. And yeah, that concludes our 12 Bengals options that are, I think 1 or 2 of them will be inducted this year. And out of these 12 players, I think the 4 players that have the best chance of making it to the, to the Bengals Ring of Honor, I think it's very hard to make a decision. I mean, all of these players are so amazing, and it's hard to compare them because they have different positions. If they were all like wide receivers, maybe it'd be a little easier to make a decision because you'd be looking at the same stats. But no, this is an all around thing, so it's very hard to compare. Especially because all of them were amazing players. But if I had to go with like 4 different players, I want to say definitely Jim Breach. Although he's a kicker, all-time Bengals scoring leader. I mean, had almost 1,300 points scored. He was incredible. So I have to go with Jim Breach for one of them. I definitely want to go with Carlos Dunlap for the other one. 82.5 sacks, which is the second most in Bengals history. 22 forced fumbles, and he had 100 total sacks in his career. That is incredible. So Carlos Dunlap for sure. Wow, this is really tough. I think I have to go with AJ Green, one of the best top 5 Bengals receivers in history, I want to say. Very successful, 1,426 yards in his best season. Yeah, definitely AJ Green. And then if I had to go with one other person, wow, this is actually really tough. If I had to go with one other person, I would either say Reggie Williams or Leon Hall. It'd either be Leon Hall or Reggie Williams. So those are my 4 to 5 Bengals players who I think have the best chance of being inducted into the Bengals Hall of the Bengals Hall of Fame. Sorry, the Bengals Ring of Honor. And yeah, so that concludes the video today. I hope you had a great time watching this video. I hope you learned a little bit about these 12 players, all very famous players who played for the Bengals. I hope you guys have a great Saturday. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Good day.